Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another Brilliant Metrics webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about your B2B marketing technology roadmap and the various stops along that path to reach B2B marketing technology maturity. So, a little bit of housekeeping here. Please do post your questions into the chat. If I don't address them live on the webinar, I will address them at the end of the webinar for sure. Um, don't be stingy with those questions, please. It will help make sure that all the gaps are covered. If you're thinking it's a question, somebody else on the webinar is also thinking it's a question. So do them a favor and ask it. Second of all, a copy of these slides along with a handout that'll cover the checklist that we'll go through today will be sent to you in the days following the webinars. So don't feel like you need to necessarily take notes like crazy or take screen captures. You'll get the slides. If you're on the live stream, you will still get an opportunity to get the slides by simply scanning a QR code, and that goes for people watching this after the fact on YouTube or wherever it's been pirated. Okay, a little bit about me. My name is Steve Robinson. I'm the founder and CEO here at Brilliant Metrics. In addition to leading the team here, I do a lot of public speaking. I do workshops. We've got a workshop coming up on November 12th in Minneapolis on account-based marketing, as a matter of fact. I mentor startups occasionally, and I'm getting replugged into the marketing community as my kids are getting old enough that I'm not constantly fathering. So Brilliant Metrics is our agency. Brilliant Metrics is a B2B strategic marketing agency. We are a full service, but we definitely take that strategic, data-driven approach with a strong eye towards continuous improvement. What makes us different from a lot of other agencies is what you're experiencing here today. We provide clarity, we provide education, we help make the marketing world make sense, which in 2024, with all of the FUD surrounding, fear, uncertainty, and I forget what the D stands for again, around artificial intelligence and around privacy, you need a partner that does help make that world make sense, and that's where Brilliant Metrics comes in. All right, we're going to cover 4 areas of marketing technology today, and we're going to cover them in the context of crawl, walk, run, and then what we call fly. Peaking out on maturity within that particular technology. As we move from crawl to walk to run to fly within each one of these, it doesn't necessarily mean leveling up in the actual tool you're running. It doesn't necessarily mean spending more money. It does mean improving your use of the existing tool, and in some cases, augmenting or leveling up to the next level of tool. We'll talk about email marketing and marketing automation. We'll move from that into paid media, then tag management and metrics, and then finally we'll end with what we call intent and intel. That'll make sense when we get there. So let's start our journey on marketing automation or email marketing. At the crawl level of email marketing and marketing automation, you're just sending regular, what is the industry calls batch and blast emails, meaning you have a list of subscribers, you're sending everyone in that subscriber list the same email at the same time. And if you're doing any personalization, it's probably beyond just like hi first name. You're probably doing it by having different lists for different segments or different groups of customers and prospects within your database. MailChimp is a great tool for this. There are others. Constant Contact has gotten a lot better. But you don't need to go to one of the more higher powered marketing automation platforms. And yes, it's worth noting, MailChimp has marketing automation built in. It's a little clunky, and for batch and blast emails, we love MailChimp. For marketing automation, there are other tools that work a little bit better. So moving along this crawl, walk, run, and fly, it's great to kind of benchmark where you're at in this process, but there are certain things you should have in place before you try to level up, before you try to move to that next level. And for email marketing, before you try to move into marketing automation, you're going to want to make sure that you are consistent in producing the content to share. If you don't have the resources to be consistently producing content internally or externally, it doesn't make sense to level up your marketing technology to do anything more, because without being able to feed it with content, it will be stifled and you won't get the return on investment in your time and money to move up to the next level. Second, you need a plan to grow subscribers. You don't necessarily have to have that plan enacted because you can be technologically held back from implementing that plan, but you need to have a plan to grow subscribers. Generally, that means having a series of lead magnets in mind. We cover lead magnets in detail in our Orbit Framework webinar. We'll include a link to that in the follow-up email. And I think it's probably worthy of its own webinar in and of itself. But lead magnets are these are landing pages with some offer on them that make it worthwhile for somebody to submit their contact information and end up being a subscriber so that you can continue to nurture them. If you don't have a plan for that and you don't have consistent content, stay at crawl until you do. If you do move up to walk, at this point, you're going to want to upgrade your technology. Again, MailChimp has marketing automation. I think even Constant Contact has marketing automation right now, but they're not the best at that. I'd recommend looking at one of the 4 technologies on the screen right now. Adobe Marketo Engage is going to be a little bit more on the enterprise side, integrates really well with Salesforce if that's your CRM. HubSpot's going to be probably the easiest to use and has certainly the best community and the best documentation out there. Mautic is a free and open source. We love Mautic because you can get to invest that money that you would spend on licensing in actually doing things within the software, and it is just about as capable as any enterprise platform out there. Plus, because it's open source, you can actually extend it with plugins and write code on it to make it do whatever you need it to do. And Brevo, which I think used to be Sendinblue, has really gained a lot of momentum. It's kind of a middle tier. If you just want a best of breed email marketing automation platform, Brevo is pretty good. Once you've selected a platform, the first key step is to get it integrated with your website. I've seen a lot of companies spending money on a marketing automation platform and skipping this step. When I say integrate it with your website, that means making sure that your website is tracking every visitor inside the marketing automation platform, and that you have swapped out as many of the forms as you can with the marketing automation forms so that you can take actions on those contacts after they filled out the form, and so that the marketing automation system can recognize that individual based on the information they put in the form. Because part of what makes marketing automation better than email marketing is it tracks your website visitors, but you have to have those 2 things in place to do that. Okay, so part of walk, you've got marketing automation platform selected, you have it integrated. Now let's take advantage of this platform and do something more than batch and blast. Our recommended starting point at this stage is to implement 1 or more evergreen email nurtures. These are different from your batch and blast emails in that you're setting up a string of emails that everybody's going to get after they subscribe, and they're going to get them in the same order. Somebody subscribes this week, next week they get email 1, the week or month after that they get email 2, the week or month after that they get email 3. While somebody's getting email 3, somebody else is getting email 1 or maybe email 2. Everybody's at their own point in this journey. What this allows you to do is you can run your best hits and only your best hits. If email 4 isn't performing well, pull it out and put something else in its place. And now you're providing the absolute best experience to each new subscriber. It's also, to a large extent, set and forget. So you're getting more mileage out of that content that you've been producing. You can take your old newsletters, figure out which ones ran well, and use those as a starting point for your nurture. Not everything fits into nurture. Certainly, there are going to be things like event invites, webinar invites, major business announcements. Those kinds of things will remain batch and blast, but this gives you the air cover in your email marketing program that you're consistently providing that really good experience. And furthermore, you can segment it based on market segmentation. So when you have different account types or customer types, give them their own nurture so that you can write those emails to them. They may even link to the same blog posts or resources, but you're able to frame them in the context of that visitor. So walk state, you've got marketing automation installed, integrated with your website. You have some evergreen nurtures out there. When is it time to level up again? Well, when you have consistent subscriber growth and you're feeding the machine of subscribers, and when you have 1 year or more of that evergreen nurture completed, so that uh, you have that ground air cover kind of covered. You have everybody receiving an email consistently. I will add, if you have a year of emails, you can have people start back over at the top. The only caveat, you need to make sure that you change all of your subject lines, because otherwise it causes problems when your recipients have threading turned onto their email. They'll see the same email thread underneath when they received it a year ago. All right, so you have consistent subscriber growth. You've got a year of your evergreen nurtures. What's next in your marketing automation journey? The next stop is to implement lead scoring. This will produce those passive leads for you to follow up on. These are individuals that have intent, they have interest in your product or service, but they're not ready to fill out a form and they're not ready to pick up the phone. Great, send them to sales. Sales will pick up the phone. Lead scoring is a game changer if it's implemented correctly, but it doesn't do you any good if you haven't taken the prior steps of having those evergreen nurtures and a regular cadence of email deliverability, because lead scoring is dependent on identifying the visitors to your website. That happens when they fill out a form, again, prior step getting it integrated correctly, or when they click a link in an email, again, prior step having solid nurtures in place. The other thing that happens at this stage in maturity is generally you're going to implement some sort of an email or database hygiene program. This strips out the email subscribers that aren't engaging with your emails, and this strips out the contacts from your database that haven't had any activity in the last 12 or 18 months. In doing so, your database doesn't just continually get bigger and dirtier and bigger and dirtier, and your email program remains a higher level of deliverability. If you're curious about this a little bit more, we have a great webinar on email deliverability that'll cover the email aspects of this. I'm not sure if we have a database hygiene webinar specifically or not, but there's plenty of content on our site about that. Okay. The other thing you can do at run state is now when you're at this run stage is increase the frequency of those emails and those nurtures. Ideally, you're sending an email more than once a month. That could be twice a month, that could be weekly, but start interleaving emails in between. So you go from email 1 to email 1.5, from email 1.5 to email 2, which was there before. Now add email 2.5 between 2 and 3. Introduce those new emails in between, so you're increasing that cadence from once a month to twice a month, or maybe even weekly. Once you have taken those steps, lead scoring is implemented, it's working correctly, your frequency is increased, and you're sending emails at least twice a month. Now it's time to fly. And when we talk about flying, this is where we start to introduce not just nurtures based on market segments, but nurtures based on intent. These can be problem-based. I know I have the problem that you address, but I haven't figured out the solution yet. If you can detect that because they're engaging with content about that problem, you can frame that problem and educate that prospect with a dedicated nurture that drives them to a solution. This can also be solution-based. If you can detect intent in one of your products or services, go ahead and send them information that helps them understand that product and service better and has a strong call to action to engage, whether that's a meeting or a purchase. These intent nurtures really get the most ROI out of your email marketing and your marketing automation, but they rely on having a solid groundwork of those of existing content out there in those industry or segment nurtures, because that's what's getting that engagement and allowing you to detect the intent. And then finally, this is the stage where you can introduce enrichment. There's a tool out there called Clay. Clay does a great job of kind of automating this enrichment, but you don't want to do this until you have your lead scoring program really running like a top, because you don't know which prospects to enrich. But Clay lets you enrich these prospects, better segment them for personalization, and It allows you to send more complete contact information over to sales. Fly level tactic, though. Don't try and do this too early. So crawl your batch and blast newsletters. Once you have consistent content and a plan to grow subscribers, go ahead and implement that marketing automation platform. Once you have that integrated correctly, you have consistent subscriber growth through a series of lead magnets, and you have a year or more of content. Now it's time to introduce lead scoring and database hygiene and increase your nurture frequency. Once that's all running like a top, then you can add intent nurtures and really capitalize on that intent, either identifying contacts with a problem or identifying contacts with a solution interest, and enrich the database so that you're improving the segmentation and the usability of that data that's going to sales. Okay, that's marketing automation. Let's jump into paid media really quickly. From a crawl state, if you're doing nothing with paid media and you want to at least get something out there, working on it yourself, I'd recommend starting with Google Ads and Meta being Facebook and Instagram ads. You notice LinkedIn isn't on this slide. Being in B2B, LinkedIn seems like the obvious place to invest and dabble in paid media first, because I can target exactly the people I want to target there by job title and company and industry and all these great targeting mechanisms. LinkedIn is incredibly fickle. We're experts in the platform. We still only get it to work about a third of the time. And the reason being, they have a supply problem. They have far more advertisers on the platform than they have daily users. And so you end up in situations where you're competing for attention with other players that are willing to outbid and outspend you on the platform. And it's just really hard to get it to work. When I talk about advertising on Facebook and Instagram using Meta's platform, I'm not talking about using the targeting on those platforms. I'm talking about using it as what I like to call a dumb pipe, to get your messaging, get your content, get your calls to action in front of exactly the right audience in a way they can't ignore because it's in their feed. All right, let's talk about how to do that. So when it comes to Meta, most people will start by boosting posts. This is exactly the wrong way to start. When you boost posts, you have limited direction on how those posts are targeted, and you have no control over how the algorithm is targeting them. You're far better off uploading a CRM list from your email marketing platform, our marketing automation platform, or from your CRM system, or even that you've purchased. I didn't tell you to do that. That's against Meta's terms of service, but a lot of people do it. Uploading that CRM list and then telling it to go find lookalikes or targeting that CRM list directly. You can also build lookalikes from people who have visited your website by retargeting, and in addition to retargeting, building a lookalike audience off of your retargeting audience if you have sufficient traffic. This takes advantage of Meta's algorithm. Meta's algorithm is phenomenal, both at finding lookalikes based on behavior, how people act the same, and in identifying the people that are most likely to take advantage of your content and your offers. On the Google ad side, a great way to get started is with Google Performance Max. Google Performance Max is essentially AI for advertising. All you have to do is upload your customer lists, your prospect lists, upload video into YouTube and say that you want to run that video, upload ad copy and content, and it will take care of figuring out how to mash all of that together to get in front of the right audience at the right time. We don't use it for our clients, but I know other agencies do, and I know other marketers do, and it works really well. You don't have very much control over what it's putting in front of whom. And certainly a talented marketer with more advanced tools can do better than Performance Max. But for a small team trying to get into the paid media game, it is a great first starter if you don't want to engage an agency. So Meta, you're going to use lookalikes off of web. and CRM, target that CRM list directly. Google, you're going to use Performance Max. When is it time to level up? Well, honestly, it could be immediately because the next step, unfortunately, is to engage an agency. But if you are successful in implementing Meta and Google Performance Max, you'll still hit a point of diminishing returns where if you throw more money at it, it just can't produce more. That's the point at which you're sort of forced to level up if you want to continue to grow and continue to mature. I am all for DIY. I would love to give you a complete DIY path forward through all of these different aspects of maturity and marketing technology. When it comes to paid media, though, there's a wall you'll hit. And so for the walk stage, you're forced to interact with an agency, and I'll explain why. Once you've maxed out what Google has to offer, once you've maxed out what Meta has to offer, you're going to start hitting issues trying to diversify to other platforms with two things. One, minimums. The platforms that I've listed here, all of them have relatively steep minimums that it's hard to reach as a B2B marketer. As a B2C marketer, oftentimes your media budgets are a lot higher and it's easier to reach those minimums. But as B2B, it becomes almost cost prohibitive to even start with many of these platforms. And two, many of these have a steep learning curve. Now, several of them will offer value-added service to overcome that steep learning curve. But at that point, you're essentially leveraging the platform as an agency anyway. So I hate to say it, but at this stage, your best bet is to hire an agency because they're going to be able to use these platforms and get the value out of them. What do you get from leveling up your marketing technology from just Google and Facebook to these platforms? Well, you get advanced targeting. You can now target media using IP addresses, target media with geofencing, target media with CRM data, target media with advanced third-party targeting. All of these targeting mechanisms are not available inside of Google Ads, and they become available inside of these other platforms. In addition to that, Google Ads only touches a small portion of the internet. The rest of it requires a higher level platform that can place that media on different exchanges. So you get a lot of more reach and you get much better targeting if you level up to what's called a demand side partner or DSP. So now you've leveled up, you're working with an agency, you're doing programmatic media across using different platforms besides just Google. You've got advanced targeting in place, your reach is greater. When is it ready? When is it time to move to the next level? Well, when your targeting is dialed in, because at this point you're running primarily display ads or banner ads on these platforms. Maybe some native ads, maybe a small amount of video, but it's kind of rare. Once you have that targeting dialed in with that cheaper to produce media, then it's time to produce some more higher value, higher ROI, but more expensive media. And that means leveling up to video. You have to have a plan and budget to do so before you can move to run. So why video? Video just produces a higher ROI. It costs a lot more to produce, but it is significantly more engaging. And you generally have a captive audience in the form of pre-roll or mid-roll, regardless of the platform that you're running it on. You can run it on YouTube, but if it's medium or high production value, you can also run it on set-top boxes. So it's running on smart TVs and it's called OTT, over the top. And it would also run on laptops. If somebody were on CNN.com on their laptop, they could see your ad. By getting your video out through multiple channels, you give your video the chance to really produce that ROI. And you've already got the targeting figured out from the display media you've been running. So let's say you're at this point, you've got video running. You're probably approaching the point where you're spending more than those minimums, and you might be hitting that point where it would be cheaper to staff than it would be to rely on an agency. This is the point that you can pull that media back in-house. That's the last level. So now you need to invest in that demand side platform, that DSP. You need to pick between the ones that I had on the previous slide or some other ones. Um, Sometimes it's cobbling together two or three in order to really get the coverage and the targeting tactics you need. You'll also need somebody trained up on how to use those DSPs to really get the most out of them on staff. So you're not just investing in the technology, but you're investing in the humans as well. So this is your crawl, walk, run path when it comes to paid media. Start out with Meta and Google Performance Max, level up to programmatic using a demand side platform, probably through an agency, level up to video and the video production, the platforms needed to do that, and then finally leveling up to running that paid media in-house. The next area of discussion is tag management and analytics. Measurement. All states simply making sure you have Google Analytics installed correctly and actually using it. The majority of clients coming in, even some enterprise level, don't actually look at their Google Analytics. They haven't taken the time to learn the tool enough to know how to use it. Some of them don't even have it installed correctly and don't know it. So take some time, get in there, look at it, maybe hire a professional to make sure it looks correct and it's installed correctly, and then start gleaming some insights out of that Google Analytics. The key things you want to look at are, how are people converting? How are people becoming leads or customers on my website, and where are they coming from? And those two things are largely available if Google Analytics is set up at all correctly out of the box. That said, you're going to want to know more about what they're doing on the website than can be easily determined from Google Analytics itself. So once you're regularly referencing it, the next step is to layer in a couple more tools to get some more information out of it. The first tool is Google Tag Manager, and this is actually Google's preferred way of installing analytics now. But you install Google Tag Manager on your website, and then Google Tag Manager pushes data over to Google Analytics. This also allows you to tag events on your website a lot better. If you want to tag when somebody watches a video, if you want to tag when somebody scrolls down to the bottom of the page, if you want to tag when somebody fills out a form or clicks a button, you can add those events without having to hire a developer to add them if you've installed Google Tag Manager. The other thing you want to consider installing is a tool. It's actually our own tool, so this is a bit of a shameless plug, but Bot Badger. When you get to the point that you're regularly referencing Google Analytics, you will see traffic anomalies. You're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. Those traffic anomalies are usually caused by bots hitting your website, and in reality, somewhere between 20 and 60% of the traffic reported in Google Analytics isn't even human and not useful information to you as a marketer. To get that data out and make sure the rest of the data that you're looking at is actionable, Bot Badger is your best defense. It will prevent Google Tag Manager from loading and therefore prevent analytics from getting into your system that aren't human. All of a sudden, the signal to noise ratio flips, and now you can start to see the patterns in the data to make them make sense. Without Bot Badger, it's a lot of noise. Okay, so walk stage, you've got Bot Badger, Google Tag Manager, you've got some custom events configured, so now you can see the actions that matter inside of Google Analytics. You may still find that you're lacking some information. Before you move to the next level, two things need to be true. First of all, the data you are seeing should be consistent and accurate. It should make sense. It just might not be at the level of fidelity that you need it to be. Second, you need to identify what's missing, and that takes the forms of segmentation, and usually some metrics or numbers that you want to be able to get out of your analytics that you can't currently get. Once you've figured out those gaps, the next step is to set up in Google Analytics the way to address the gaps. There's two ways to do that: dimensions custom dimensions. These are essentially boxes or folders that you can put every website visitor or every website action into. So you can slice and dice that data as you want to. So you could put existing customers versus prospects. You could look at the data based on whether or not this person is in a particular industry or of a particular persona. There's a lot of different ways you can slice and dice data inside of Google Analytics based on these custom dimensions. And then custom metrics. This is where you can measure the things that matter to you. This could be things that you're counting, like the number of times they use a particular utility or tool on the website. This could be the value of a particular purchase for an e-commerce website, or the value of a particular type of lead. There's a lot of different types of metrics you can put in here, but this will fill the gaps in what you want to measure to understand the outputs. You're determining the marketing inputs. Google Analytics now can tell you those outputs and allow you to slice and dice them in ways that matter to your business. All right, so run stage, you've got analytics installed, you've got custom dimensions and custom metrics. If you need more fidelity or you need more transparency, you need to be able to put the data that would be coming out of analytics into the hands of people that aren't using Google Analytics and don't take the time to learn it. That's where these last two techniques will come in. One of the cool things that came with Google Analytics 4 is the ability to also send the data that would be going into Google Analytics over to a tool called Google BigQuery. Google BigQuery is a data warehouse. It's a giant database that allows you to store large amounts of information, like every website visitor to your website ever. If you push this data to Google BigQuery, it allows you to retain data longer than the 14-month maximum that Google Analytics has imposed. It also allows you to mix and match data from other systems. So if you want to pull in data from Salesforce and from your marketing automation platform and integrate that with data from Google Analytics so you can get a really clear picture of everything, you can do that with Google BigQuery. And then finally, you can publish that data internally with better dashboards if you're trying to get it from someplace other than Google Analytics. Yes, you can set up a Looker Studio to go and pull that information from Google Analytics. That's Google's data visualization platform. But there are limitations you're going to hit pretty quickly, and the only way around those limitations is to use this little loophole here and pushing that data over to BigQuery. The second thing at the fly level is to move Google Tag Manager from running inside of your visitor's browser to running on a server. So instead of somebody hitting your website, loading Google Tag Manager inside of their browser, then Google Tag Manager goes and pushes things to analytics and to Facebook and to other platforms and does all that logic right there inside of your visitor's browser. Instead, your website loads Google Tag Manager and sends less information to Google Tag Manager, and all that logic happens inside of Tag Manager, and Tag Manager is running on a server instead of in your website visitor's browser. And it's pushing information to Facebook, it's pushing information to analytics, it's pushing information to whatever other marketing platforms you're running, and all of that happens server side. The advantages to this are both you can do things that you wouldn't be able to do securely inside of a website visitor's browser. You really don't want to be exposing like private keys to things out there in on your website. By moving the Google Tag Manager server side, you can integrate it a lot more deeply and cleanly right there as people are interacting with the website without having to open those security holes. Two, it gets around some of the privacy blockers that are out there today, because when you run Google Tag Manager server side, it's using all first-party cookies that are served in a way that is more privacy friendly. And in general, browsers are more likely to share information with a server-side Google Tag Manager than they are with a client-side one. All right, crawl, Google Analytics installed correctly, walk. Now you have Google Analytics with custom events fed by Google Tag Manager and kept clean by Bot Badger. Run, you've got custom dimensions and custom metrics. And then Fly, you're leveraging BigQuery and server-side Google Tag Manager, which are both relatively heavy technical lifts, but get you really far. All right, last section, intent and intel. What do I mean by this? Well, we talked about lead scoring early under marketing automation as a way to detect intent to buy. But lead scoring is only one little piece of the puzzle there, and it relies on you having those contacts in your database and having an email marketing program that is nurturing them in order for them to pop up as a marketing qualified lead, as a lead to be sent to sales. What if you've never met this person before? What if they're not in your systems? How can you still surface these leads? And that's where the next set of tools and marketing technologies come into play. The first one is a tool called RB2B. RB2B has a free and a paid tier. The free tier is actually really valuable today. I don't know how much longer it's going to be. They promised it's free forever, but we'll see. There's not in my opinion, there's not enough incentive to upgrade to the paid version of RB2B today, but go grab that free one and get it installed on your website. This uses third-party cookies, which are still available today in at least in Google Chrome or in Android, to identify by the individual website visitors. It will tell you exactly the first and last name and LinkedIn profile of the person on your website. Now, does it identify all of your website visitors? No, it identifies a small fraction of them. But even a small fraction of named visitors to your website, along with which pages they've been interacting with, is incredibly valuable. It generates another lead stream for sales. It needs to be filtered. It needs to be, modified and make sure that these are actually higher intent leads before you go hand them off to sales. But it's a great way to generate leads from the website passively. It won't work for forever. Whenever third-party cookies are finally killed, I would expect this tool to really get crippled. But for now, it's a great way to identify passive visitors to your website by name and generate leads. Once you have our B2B installed, there are even better ways of doing this. But our B2B is people-based, so it's easiest to make that data actionable. So start here and figure out, what do you do when you have somebody on your website that looks like they've got some intent? Do we hand that directly off to sales? Do we get them into CRM and maybe send some cold email marketing to them? Do we follow up with following them and connecting with them on LinkedIn? Like, what's the process? Figure out that process while sales and marketing treats these very passive leads. And then once that process is ironed out and you're acting on these people-based leads, the next level is to start to identify anonymous account level leads. And for that, another free tool. Demandbase actually has a free level. Demandbase is a tool we'll talk about later. They are account-based marketing / B2B marketing intent tool. But they have a free level that you can install that'll actually push the names of the companies visiting your website into Google Analytics. So now you can run a report in Analytics to go see who's hitting your website, and then act on that. Now, you're not going to know the names of the individuals. You're just going to know the names of the companies, which is why this is kind of the walk level instead of the crawl level. It's a little bit harder to figure out, well, what do I do if I know this company is on my website, right? But this is a free way to play with that and figure that out. We'll include a link to sign up for this in the response email that we send after this webinar. Once you have Demandbase free in place, the next step is to figure out how you act on those anonymous accounts. And if you get a good path forward of, okay, we know that this company is showing some interest, so we're going to go and mine the contacts in that company and load them into CRM and load them into marketing automation. And we're going to target them with media, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, right? Once you have that next set of actions covered, now you probably want to introduce another tool to do that even better. And the two tools that we like in this space are Leadfeeder and Leady. Leady is slightly less expensive. Leadfeeder has some nicer features than Leady, but they're both great tools for this anonymous account detection. And one or both of them will actually give you a list of potential individuals too that they think might be who that person was. It's not very accurate. So really your sales team needs to figure out who they're following up with here. But this is all based on reverse IP addresses. So they're looking at the network that the person's using when they hit your website. And if that is a company's network, then they're able to tell that it's that company that's visiting your website. These tools are great. They're kind of the middle of the road here between the free demand base and the next level that we'll talk about. But it's a great chance to figure out to really take that. After you've figured out how you treat those anonymous accounts, to amp those up and get more of them. All right, let's say you have that running and you want more leads, or maybe you want more orchestration and you don't want it to all be manual after you've identified that an account has intent. In both cases, there is a next tier of tool, but these tools are expensive. So the next tier of tool, the two big players in this space are Demandbase and 6sense. Both of these use both the first-party signals of the reverse IP stuff, along with, which is what, by the way, that's what you get for free with the Demandbase free, but they'll also use third-party signals. They're buying browsing data of, hundreds of thousands of companies across the internet. What are those companies looking at online? What articles are they reading? What videos are they watching? What content are they engaging with? And based on that, they're determining what those companies are in market for. And they will send you the company names along with the key contacts based on your personas for people that are in market for your products or services. So now you have the first party intent of both, we're de-anonymizing traffic to the website with our B2B and with Leady or Lead Feeder. This is taking that to the next level, where not only do you know that they have interest because they visited your website, but that you know that they might have interest because they've been visiting other websites. And then they orchestrate it. They allow you to run advertising against those contacts. They automatically integrate with email systems to automatically send emails to people that meet your ideal customer profile and have also demonstrated intent on your website or somebody else's. And they automate everything that you figured out how to do in the prior steps. This is at fly state because if you haven't figured out how you treat accounts and individuals with intent, automating it doesn't do you any good. You don't want to be paying for one of these tools, dealing with the implementation of one of these tools while you're still figuring out what actions you want to take against these contacts. Figure that out with the cheaper and easier to implement tools. Okay, that's it for today. Nobody has posted a question into chat, so that means I'm either talking over everybody's heads or I've preempted every question you've got. So those of you who are on the live stream, feel free to throw your question into the Facebook or the LinkedIn or the YouTube chat. For those of you on Zoom, feel free to throw your question right there in the Zoom live chat. I'm here to answer. In addition to that, take a look at the QR codes on the screen. The one on the left allows you to follow us on LinkedIn. Make sure you're aware of any future events, webinars, and content that we're putting out, all educational. If you want to meet with me and talk to me about your particular MarTech situation, you can scan the middle QR code. And the one on the right is for those folks on the live stream or coming through a recording after the fact. If you want a copy of these slides, that's where you get that. With that, it looks like we don't have any questions for today, so I appreciate you sticking around. It's a little bit longer webinar today at 45 minutes, and I do value your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.